Hi everybody, it's Jerry here. Today I am going to show you some basic saltwater fly casting techniques, just enough to get you out fishing. More advanced stuff we'll save for future videos, but once you get out of here, at least be able to get 70 feet or 60, 70, 80 feet. If you're in that range, you're fishing. You're fishing in 42, but we all like to see how far we can get it. So if you're hitting 70 feet, you're doing A-OK. 60, you're doing just fine. 50, you probably got to work on your cast. But if you get out of here, throw in 70 feet, that'll be great. But just going to talk about just a few simple things that I do to get my line out there, and a couple of things that I think about. All right, let's get the lines going. Real quick about leaders. Your leader's going to give you a few more yards, that's for sure. It also may make your casting more difficult, so keep that in mind. I use close to a rod's length in the saltwater, and I make sure it is straight. You don't want your leader all curvy and whatnot. You want it to roll out and lay out straight. It's going to give you, the line is throwing, your fly line is throwing your leader. So you want to get, if you use a 15-foot leader and you throw it properly, you're going to get 15 more feet out of your cast. So if you can only hit 70 feet and you have on a 15-foot leader, you're now hitting 85 feet. So good stuff. But make sure it's tapered. You can buy them already tapered, or you can use, I use about a 4 to 5 foot piece of 50-60, maybe a 3-foot piece of 40 or 30, and I'll use another 2 to 3 feet of say 20 pound test. Now if you're fishing a little heavier, you might want to drop a tippet on there or keep it heavy, but it's just a basic formula. You want to make sure it's tapered. You can buy them pre-tapered, one or the other. It's going to get you that extra distance if you're looking for that. But keep in mind, it's going to be a little more difficult to throw. First thing you want to do is make sure your line and your leader is straight. You don't want coils or twists. It happens while you're fishing, especially if you're throwing heavier flies, but just make sure you stretch your line. You can stretch it as you go, which is what I do. So first things first, make sure you stretch your line. And what I do for a false fly is I use a twist tie. Make a great false fly. Actually, I think you probably will catch fish with that too. So that's what I use for a fake fly. Real quick, we're going to talk about grips that I use. I do hold the rod all different ways, depending on the conditions of the day, the way the wind's blowing, where I'm fishing, how high or low I'm in the water, on the bank. Very important stuff, and stuff just to think about. But for now, your grips are just basic. With a heavier rod, I like my thumb, just as such. Now there's all different ways. Sometimes if I'm going short, I'll use my index finger. I'll go with my thumb. If I'm going really hard back and forth, I'll actually hold the rod with a full grip. One of my favorite ways to grip is actually I choke up and put my thumb on that blank just like that. And I can feel that blank working with my thumb. And actually I can give it a little last push, and I notice I get a few more yards doing that. But like I said, it all varies. If you're just starting, just try lining up your thumb with those guides. Real quick thought on your grip. You can see it's a little windy out today. If I lift up my line, it kind of flows with the wind. I believe it's got to be, I'm going to guess about 18-mile-an-hour wind. That's kind of good. You want that lift in your line. You can see, you can do all kinds of things. If I was fishing 30 feet, I can just get right out in front of the fish, the 40 feet, whatever that is. and probably even 60 feet, I do not have to do nothing. So wind is good. Do not let the wind scare you. If you can see, you want a little wind, you give your line a little lift. Wind direction, real quick thought on wind direction is I like to throw it high with the wind, low against the wind. So just keep that in mind. So if the wind is coming to me, I want to take a high upward cast and a low forward cast. Just a high upward cast, low forward cast. And basically you can think the opposite. If the wind is to your back, you want to go low and then high coming back. Low and then high cast coming back. So that wind's going to pick up and carry your line, and when you keep it low, it's going to cut into the wind. Real simple, fast, basic concepts on messing around with the wind. I'll go low and over, low and over, low, over. One thing you want to take note is there's a section of your line, I guess you can call it the belly. It's a little thicker, and we're looking for that rod to load properly. So in order to get that cast, you want to make sure that thicker piece of line normally is out on the outside of your line, and your thinner section is just about at your tip. Normally that's, if you go by the weights, your rod weights, that's how it works. In reality, it doesn't exactly work like that. You might have a little less belly, a little more belly. You can cut your line to compensate so you can get that thinner line shooting through your guides. These are a little bit more advanced concepts, but it's just something to think about. So you have your thicker section, which is your belly, which is normally 30 to 50 feet, depending on what kind of line you're throwing, and your thinner section. And that's what's going to be shooting. That's what you want to shoot out, your thinner section, not your thick section of line. So now when I'm starting my cast, first things first is you want to make sure your line is straight. Actually, when you start your cast, you want some line out there. You don't want to start your cast. I see a lot of guys do this with 10 feet of line and start. You don't want to do that. It's just you're just wasting energy. I like to get out, like I talked about, that thicker section of line. Want to get that out of the rod. You're going to feel it in the tip of your rod. You're going to feel your rod flex a little more. That weight is going to be applying to it. So I'll just do a real quick roll cast or two. And now this is, I know my rod's going to be loading really well. And you want to make sure your line is straight out. You don't want any curves or bends in that, because you're going to lift it up and that belly's going to flip over. You want your line straight out when you start your cast. So just set that up, and now you're ready to go. So basically, if you're in the water, you have a water tension. That water's going to be pulling that way, you're going to be pulling this way. So what I'll do is I will gently, there's a little midget of snow there, I will gently lift the line up off the water, throw it behind me in a single motion like such. And I'm just lifting the line up off the water. So let's start again. Get it to where your line's going to load, lift, and build up your speed. And we can definitely shoot line out at any point, but I'm just showing you the basic dynamics. We're going to talk about line speed. Line speed is all about your left hand. You want to get that line speed so you can really shoot that line out there beautifully. And if you're going in the wind, you just give it a pull. But if you're casting in the wind, sometimes it's pushing back on you. So you're going to get more line speed, of course, in the direction that you're throwing with the wind rather than behind the wind. Sometimes you'll feel that line push up on you, so you ease up on your pull when you're going into the wind. So finally, shooting line. That's what you want to do to get those last few yards. You're looking at maybe 15 to 30 feet. That's why we want our speed. We want our speed, because the more speed you have in your line, the more line you are going to shoot. The more false casts you let out, the faster your line gets. So, we're ready to shoot. Oop, I'm stepping on my line, but that's the concept. So you're hauling, you're letting go, and you're shooting line. Real quick excuse, my line's getting caught on the snow, so it's not shooting the whole length, but we should have had that whole piece of line out. You can shoot line behind you too, just as well as forward. So, we'll get our line speed and watch. And when you do it as such, you use a couple of less false casts, because you're letting the line out behind you, you're letting the line out in front of you. At first, just do what you feel comfortable, get that line speed and let go. You want to develop your line speed first. One quick thing to think about is the height that you're casting at. Now, if I was on the ground in the water, my cast is just not going to be as long. You're just not going to hit the same ranges as if you were up out of the water. You really want to be above the water, on a boat, on a dock, on a jetty. And that's when you're going to hit that 90, 110 foot range consistently. But if you're in the water and you're hitting 70, 80 feet on a crazy windy day, you've done pretty good. Just something to keep in mind. All right, we talked about this hand a little bit. Now let's talk about this hand. We talked about the grip. Now we're going to talk about the motions that we use. What motion do I use? I'll use all different ones. I'll use my whole arm. I'll use just my forearm, almost like a punch. Just use what you find comfortable. Getting tangled down there. Just find what you use is most comfortable to you. I'll go sideways. It all depends on the wind and what I'm aiming for. And I'll even go on my other side with a crosswind. A little more difficult cast, but I'll go low and over, low and over, low, over. I'll go low, low sometimes, low, low. On the end of the cast is with this hand, I pull back sometimes to, your line will still go forward, but it will straighten out. If you let go of your lines, you're going to lose control. Make sure you keep your hand on that line. Not always important, but you can see you pull back. I'll show you. And your line will straighten out. Do I always do that? No. But if you want to hit a spot, See that footstep right there? Put the line over it, stop and pull. Sometimes I'll pull the rod in. But that'll give you a little control. So let's have a quick review. You want to make sure your line is straight. You want to make sure your leader is straight. You want to make sure you have a tapered leader. You want to make sure you got a leader on that you can handle. Don't use 15 feet if you're not going to be able to handle it. Use a 6 feet, 8 feet. 6 feet is easy. Your left hand, that's where you're going to get your control and your line speed. Your right hand, that's where you're going to get your basic cast. You're going to try different techniques, find what's comfortable, stick with it, work on your form later. There's all different kinds of casts. Now, line speed. You want to develop your line speed, very important. Why? Because when you have that speed in your line, you have your basic cast. You have that speed in your line, and now you can shoot. And that's what you want to do in the end. So put this all together, get out there, practice, and just have fun with it. One last note is if you're fishing and you're not sure, get out 40 feet of line and just have fun. Pretty easy. Most of the fishing I do is between 0 and 40 feet. So you can get out 40 feet, you got 10 feet on your rod, you've already fishing 50 feet, and those extra 30 feet will come nice and easy. Get those extra feet you're looking for. So, thanks again for watching. Please like, dislike, comment, subscribe to the channel or not. And remember, always fish away. Thanks again for watching. And have a great night, afternoon, evening, day, wherever it is, anytime. And we'll see you next time. So to get an idea of how far we were casting there consistently, I believe I took 30 steps, and there's at least 3 feet per step. So we're consistently hitting, that's about 80, 90 feet without the lead. So that's not even going nuts. Measure it again. It's 10 feet. That's 20 feet. 30. This is where we were. Close to 100 feet consistent. So, good stuff.